Welcome to the Longevity and Hormone Health Podcast, where medicine meets lifestyle. I'm Dr. Fareeha Rizvi. I'm a consultant in diabetes, endocrinology, and obesity medicine. And each week, we will explore real-life health challenges affecting people in midlife. Joining me is Sandra. Sandra, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. My name is Sandra Spencer and I am a certified menopause coach and holistic healer, as well as the founder of La Femme and the Longevity Advantage.
Awesome. So every week, Sandra and I will discuss a real life case that either she has treated or I have treated, and we will present a medical perspective and a holistic perspective, because we feel as if people are not getting good medical and holistic care all over the world. So hopefully you will get some great take-home messages that you can implement in your day-to-day life. So today is a real case. It's a lady I saw in clinic last week with her husband. She's 44 years old. She has come to my clinic for a Hashimoto's thyroid disease review. She's also got rheumatoid arthritis. She has gained around 10 kilos in weight over the last year, and she has known prediabetes. So she had a blood test within the last 6 months that has shown a raised blood sugar, a hemoglobin A1C of 6.1%. She has also had irregular periods for the last 6 months with mood changes, fatigue, and irritability. So it's quite a complex case. I spent around 40 to 45 minutes with her and her husband. So what is happening medically? So I'll try and tackle each of these one by one. So first of all, she has 2 autoimmune diseases. So she has rheumatoid arthritis, which tends to affect the small joints, and she has Hashimoto's thyroiditis, hypothyroidism. So she's under a rheumatology doctor for her arthritis, and she's under me for her thyroid. But what is going on here is autoimmune disease, like I said. So with autoimmune disease, it's incredibly complex. We are born with our immune system, which we inherit. So our immune system is very much genetically determined. And then in our lives, we're going around with our immune system, encountering different things, maybe different viruses, different things in the atmosphere in our day-to-day lives that can trigger our immune system. So, your immune system, Sandra, my immune system, we inherited it, and then it is meant to fight off COVID, flu, for example. But in people with autoimmune disease, their immune system may encounter a virus, but instead of attacking that virus, for example, their immune system starts to attack their own organs and tissues. So in rheumatoid arthritis, this person, she is making antibodies against the synovial cartilage within her joints, and she's also making antibodies against her thyroid gland. So with the thyroid gland, antibodies have destroyed the thyroid gland. Her thyroid gland isn't working anymore, so we have to give her thyroid hormone tablets. And for rheumatoid arthritis, she is on very powerful immunosuppressive medication. So when somebody has autoimmune disease, they feel like garbage, even though we are treating the medical, aspects with thyroid hormone and arthritis medication. The immune system is still fighting itself. So that's a really big part of it. And I know, Sandra, you have a lot of experience with this. The next thing is prediabetes. So she has gained weight. She's in midlife. She's not sleeping very well. She doesn't really have time to exercise. She's having different food cravings, sugar cravings. She's not eating enough protein. She's actually vegetarian as well. So she's not eating enough protein, meaning she never feels full. And prediabetes is high blood sugar before the stage of type 2 diabetes. And she is on her way to type 2 diabetes. And the foundation of all of this is what we call insulin resistance. And the problem is insulin resistance can start for years before you actually develop prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So I've referred her to a dietitian. We've discussed weight management options for her in clinic. She'll start with a dietitian, but she may consider the GLP-1 injections. She may also want to meet with a bariatric surgeon, but that really is a last resort these days. But with regards to her diet, she definitely needs to focus on whole foods, increasing her protein, cutting out sugar, maybe looking at gluten and dairy as well, and she will do that with a dietitian, and cutting out any other toxins, so things like smoking and alcohol, which are bad for diabetes, but they're also really bad for autoimmune disease. And the last thing is, we discussed whether she's in perimenopause, and I think she almost certainly is. Currently, the guidelines around perimenopause are, if a woman has periods that are irregular after the age of 45, then we do not need to do really any further tests to confirm perimenopause. But she's a bit younger, she's 44, so often we might do some other blood tests apart from menopause blood tests, and we may do a few scans to make sure there's no other reason why she's having irregular periods. But generally, something that I want to explain to our viewers is that generally in perimenopause, blood tests are not super helpful, because the blood tests in perimenopause just show hormonal chaos. So you may have normal hormones one day and abnormal hormones the other. So blood tests are not really reliable. It's more the general story that the woman is telling us. So she had irregular periods, brain fog, irritability, trouble sleeping, hot flushes. She had the full works. So I have no doubt in my mind that she has perimenopause, and we've discussed menopause treatment options for her as well, and she will come back and discuss those with me in clinic. The other things she needs to be mindful of are things like her blood pressure, cholesterol, bone health as well. So we discussed vitamin D and calcium intake within her diet. So there's a lot there that I've mentioned, and she will stay under my care for the foreseeable future, but she really is missing a holistic approach. And she was very grateful for me to discuss all of this with her, but I really encouraged her to go and see a coach, maybe a nutritionist, a menopause coach, to help her cope with all of this.
Yeah.
All right, over to you, Sandra.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the first thing that when I saw this case was she's carrying not just an enormous amount physically, but emotionally. You know, hearing all of that from a clinician is a lot, whilst undergoing what looks like perimenopausal symptoms. As you've mentioned before, I genuinely can relate because I have an autoimmune, so I have lupus. And I remember being extremely relieved when I got my perimenopause diagnosis, because my mind was racing as to, is it burnout? Am I imagining it? Is it the lupus coming back? And all sorts of fear. So just being able to get, accuracy from, a doctor as to what is happening really is helpful, and I just know I wanted to fix it fast. So the first thing that I would sort of say to her is to, number one, take a breath, slow it down, right? And then to really kind of start to tune into her body and understand what all of these different diagnoses do to the body, and how can she work alongside it with the medical guidance. The next thing is I'd be really curious about her stress levels and how she's regulating her nervous system. Many women in their 40s, regardless of whether they've got an autoimmune, have spent years looking after everybody else, working, caring for the family, being a good partner, consistently, juggling a myriad of responsibilities, and then it get to this stage where it's just like bang, and it's just almost like the body going, here's the things you've got to deal with.
It's the breaking point.
Whilst we may not be able to eliminate stress immediately, we can change how our body responds to it. So looking at her pre-diabetes weight gain and fatigue as well, I would say, what's the relationship with food? Emotional eating is incredibly common during perimenopause, and it's not because of a lack of discipline. It's just because food becomes almost like a self-soother. when you're over, you can be at work and you can have had the salad and you've had, no coffee, and you've drank lots of water and all of these different things, a stack of, vitamins, and then you get home, and I've been there myself, and there's just overwhelm, and, and it's unexplainable. And so, you'd end up at 11 o'clock at night going into the fridge and just grabbing whatever it is just to stop it. So that's the next thing that I would be looking at. And I think the approach with this lady, because she's got so much going on, is gently, slowly. She's already got enough to deal with, and I think that this isn't something that's just going to fix overnight. There's going to be lots and lots of testing to see how her body is responding, how she can cope with it, how she can incorporate it all into her everyday life without an added overwhelm. So quite often when women enter the midlife phase, perimenopause, menopause, the smallest task can be overwhelming, which is why I feel that it's important to kind of give tiny achievable habits which will build confidence over time, rather than an overall, overhaul of her life, because it's just not necessary. So one of the things I created was a 7-day reset, and that's built around manageable habits, which are also kind of self-soothing habits. So it might be, having a chamomile tea with a cinnamon stick in there, and that's a two-way thing. It's calming, but it's also anti-inflammatory, and taking that time to really enjoy that. So then you're sort of going, that's my 10 minutes. Okay, this is me settling down my body. This is me making time for myself, like giving myself permission to have, a breath, right? And then what happens is that these tiny habits, they compound, and then by the end of the 7 days, what you're feeling is you're feeling better, because all of the habits are sort of, in helping your health. But secondly, you also feel accomplished, and then with that, a bit more confident and ready to move on to the next phase. So that's kind of one of the things that I would look at there. Another important part of coaching is really helping how women see and speak to themselves, because we really can be so horrible and unkind to ourselves. I hear so many women going, I don't know what I'm doing, I've lost control, I'm stupid, I don't recognize myself anymore. And for me, coming from a holistic side of things, I want to replace that self-criticism with self-love. And self-love, it can be a bit of a woo-woo word, but no, not really, because at the core of it, you really do, to make impact within yourself, you've got to really give self-love. You've got to get to the core of it all, and kind of like really kind of take control of it, and just be kind with yourself, and the body reacts amazingly, when this happens. So I'm not here, to give any sort of medical advice, but what I can say that the fusion of holistic practice and medical really can accelerate some of the things that can be reversed, and can also, just improve the quality of life and longevity. So that's why I really enjoy working alongside clinicians, because it's almost like, we have the same puzzle, but we're addressing different pieces. So that's what I feel is really important. And I once you've kind of made those recommendations, that's for me to kind of look at it and go, okay, that's great, that's all the medical stuff. Now, how is this person going to feel about this, and how can I kind of like come in and almost like coach, guide, give them some accountability, give them some control back.
It's so important, because all the advice that I'm going to give her, I may not see her again for another 3, 4, 6 months. So she needs someone to help her implement all of those things on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, like you said, and to build habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's why I created the Longevity Laderzy Femme. It's a 12-week program, and the reason why it spans over, because as you mentioned, you may be giving clinical advice and medication, but that medication has got to settle. We've got to understand that it's working. But alongside of all of those changes, sometimes, you need someone to talk to about the emotional changes, like how do I approach this, and also the wins. It's so important with the wins. So as well as holistic, I also recommend a strength trainer as well, because quite often once the body starts to remember, and it does, and I'm not just talking this out of textbook. I'm 55. I'm someone who's gone through perimenopause, and I'm in my 7th year of an induced menopause. And so there have been times when I wish that I had this kind of like guideline. Yes, I had the HRT and everything, but I wish I'd had someone to kind of go, right, okay, you can do this, like, maybe try and do this at gym, or maybe try and do that, or have you thought about this kind of menu, and have you thought, so having that kind of program where, number one, you can see the wins, you can celebrate the wins, but also if something's not working, if you're feeling stressed, your nervous system can't cope, you don't know how to approach something like boundaries, for example, setting boundaries. One of the interesting things is quite often as women, we do not set the boundaries. We're looking after everybody else. And so they've got used to it. The children have got used to you doing this for them. Husband has got used to you doing this. But when you get to a stage of overwhelm and then suddenly you want to change again, how do you approach that? So it's good to be able to kind of sit with someone and go, this is the challenge that I'm facing and I'm really anxious and stressed about it. And then I can say, okay, well, how about we approach it this way before you do it? Maybe we do some EFT tapping, maybe we do a little grounding work. And then with that, you might be, the results that you'll get back might be better than how you initially feel.
I mean, that's incredible, Sandra. You've discussed so much. So many of those things are implementable and can really, actually, I genuinely believe, save this woman's life, because she has 2 or 3 actually life-limiting conditions. So there's quality of life, and there's actually things like diabetes can shorten your life. So it's so crucial that we take this kind of holistic approach so seriously as patients, as doctors. And I try and, gently guide patients towards things that they can change in their lifestyle. But as you said, it's a work in process, and it may take several weeks, months, even years for her to find, her correct rhythm in life at the stage where she is currently. So, I mean, we covered so much there. Hopefully people will give us their feedback. And also, if there's any cases that people want us to discuss of their own, please send us your case, and we'll keep it anonymous, and we can give our medical and holistic perspective. So Sandra, have you got one takeaway for this case of ours, this woman, and for any other woman like her who's listening? What's your one takeaway message?
I think that perhaps to start tuning into her body, and perhaps resetting her nervous system. And it's very easy to do that. You don't have to suddenly join a big yoga group or anything. There's one simple thing, which is literally at a time where it just seems a bit overwhelming, you can just put your hand on your heart, you can put your feet on the ground and connect to, as if you're connecting to the earth core, like roots of a tree, and just taking some gentle breath in, and really then exhaling out all of that anxiety, and just feeling a little bit more, connected, grounded, and complete. because as you start to regulate your breathing, then again you can start to get that mental clarity, and you just, the whole system can start to calm down. And I actually use that myself a lot, because if I do start to have a flare with my autoimmune, one of the biggest things for me is actually shutting down the mental noise and stuff like that.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. That really is. I really hope people start doing, or start even looking into these sorts of practices themselves. Yeah. And my take-home message for this woman, or any other woman out there who's like her, who's going through anything similar, is to cut out sugar, maybe look at gluten and dairy with a nutritionist and speak to your doctor, cut out any other toxins like smoking, alcohol, eat whole foods, and particularly prioritize protein. And we can talk about protein in future episodes. What is protein? What are the best sources of protein, and how much protein to get? So if you have any other questions or queries, please post them down below. Have a look at Sandra's Instagram page and website, and my Instagram page and website, where you can get in touch with us. We each run coaching programs. We run programs together as well. Yes. So if you want to get in touch with us, please do. Many thanks, and see you next week.
Bye.